Story 1. I asked her sister. She is smart. She started a conversation about how she was getting a ring for herself and asked her sister, who is now my wife, for advice on what she should get. Then she slowly turned it into a finger measuring contest to see who had the thinner finger. Story 2. My husband asked my friends to help out. One night at dinner, the married ones passed their rings around, and we all tried them on. Then they let him know which size was the one that fit me. He also had one of them send me photos of different rings to see which style I liked. I had no idea she was sharing information with him. My ring is beautiful and fits perfectly. Story 3. My girlfriend had a few rings, and I basically went full Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible and took one of her rings while I was at her place. I brought that ring with me to the store to match the size. A few weeks later, I had Mission Impossible Part 2 to unsteal the ring without her knowing. The engagement ring fitted perfectly. Story 4. My boyfriend asked for all my sizes, from shoes and bras to rings. I know it is supposed to be a surprise, but if marriage is your end goal, there is no reason you cannot just ask directly. Story 5. I have the answer to this one and have shared it before. Let me help. Start a Reddit thread and wait for girls to respond with their ring sizes. Then open the thread and show your girlfriend while commenting on how strange it is that women randomly know this, making a remark about it being as odd as knowing your blood type. She will casually respond with both pieces of information. Later that night, after she falls asleep, remove her right ring finger to validate both. Hope that helps. Story 6. Ether. It is a common misconception that chloroform causes people to lose consciousness quickly, but that is just not the case. Ether, on the other hand. Story 7. How I managed it was by pretending that I wanted to buy myself a ring, like a signet ring. I bought a cheap ring size guide and was just checking the size of all my fingers where she could see. I didn't even need to ask, and she was trying it on all her fingers and got the size without any suspicion. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 8. Firstly, does she wear jewelry? Yes. Does she happen to wear a ring on her ring finger? You can measure that one sneakily. As it happens, if anyone were to propose to me, my mom gave me a ring from my grandmother that is exactly the right size. I usually wear it at formal events on the wrong hand. I have heard of someone who asked a store employee to help trick his now wife. She ended up chatting with the girlfriend, made her try some random styles, and later passed on the size. If the marriage has already been discussed, which is usually the most sensible thing to do, sort of like making sure you are on the same page regarding future plans, some people just straight up go ring shopping with their partner to get a sense of what they like, get a ring size, but then have the final ring and timing as a surprise. If you are the type to ask her parents for blessings, you can enlist the mom or dad to help if you trust their ability to be sneaky about your intentions. Story 9. You can always resize the ring if it does not completely fit, so you can always go with an estimate using one of your fingers. However, if she is a deep sleeper, you can always measure at home with string when she is safely tucked in bed beside you. Good luck and congratulations. Story 10. If she already has rings, pretend to play with one and put it on. Now remember where it sits on your finger. Story 11. Just ask her. Proposals that are a total surprise tend to work out less effectively than when couples are communicating. You do not have to tell her when and how you are doing it, and the proposal itself can still be a surprise, but it is fine if she knows you are ring shopping. This can give her a chance to let you know what kind of details she wants on her ring too. Story 12. For what it's worth, my engagement ring was way too big for me. My now husband took a ring he knew fit me to the jeweler, but they didn't believe my ring size was that small, so they made him buy a different size. I wore a size 3.5 and he bought a size 4.5. I was in their store the next week to prove I needed resizing, so it's not the end of the world if you get the wrong size. Story 13. I asked her ring size within our first 2 months of dating just in case I decided she was the one. Then I would already have her ring size down. Story 14. I bought my wife a ring when we were boyfriend and girlfriend. When she took it off, I placed it on all of my fingers to see which one was the best fit. I had no problems with sizing when purchasing her engagement, wedding, and eternity rings. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 15. Accidentally chop it off. Maybe in a construction accident with the saw. During the ensuing melee, measure the circumference with a piece of string. Be sure to put it on ice and then drive her quickly to the emergency room afterward so they can sew it back on. Be sure to apply pressure with a clean towel immediately after the amputation so that there is not too much blood loss. She will never guess what you actually have planned. It might take a few months for the swelling to go down, and you might need one size larger since the scarring may impact the ring size. Story 16. I grabbed a ring she hadn't worn in a while but knew it fit. Getting ready to propose, I leaned on her girlfriends for assistance. I asked about her favorite ring types, metals, colors, and stones. Once I picked one out, I asked them to take her out to get her hair and nails done. That way, when we took a photo, it looked good. Pre-game, baby. Story 17. Trank dart. Edit. Whoops. I read easiest when it really said best. My new answer is to ask her husband. Final answer, I swear. Story 18. I will share my story. My husband had a pair of calipers. Why would an accountant need a pair of calipers? It never occurred to me to ask. But he was measuring everything he could get his hands on because he was so amused by them. He measured the diameter of the cat's tail, the television cable, the length of my nose, the size of the zipper on the cushions, a light bulb that was currently in the ceiling, the diameter of my ring finger, the length of his ear, a chorizo in the fridge, and a meeple from Carcassonne. All in all, he measured dozens of things that night in childlike wonder. And I never realized his real plan until a month or so after we were engaged. Story 19. It is easy. You have a certain length of paper tape to measure her finger while she is asleep. Mark the end of the tape to figure out how long the circumference is. Story 20. Buy a yo-yo for her and help her when she puts it on her finger. Basically, lie about needing to put a black mark on the string to wear it properly. Story 21. You can resize a ring, but some rings can only be resized about one ring size up or down. You can void the manufacturer warranty on a ring by sizing it too much. Definitely ask the jeweler about the specific ring you are looking at to find out what your options are. I recommend getting a friend of hers to help get her actual size. You can get inexpensive sizers online and ship them directly to that friend. You can also have that friend take your partner ring shopping so you can get the exact size from the jeweler and feedback on the style of ring she wants. My friends and I all did that together. We knew what stone shape, prom style, and setting style each one of us liked in case our boyfriends ever asked. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 22. My husband held my hand and gauged off of the finger size. It was close, but ultimately I did get it resized, which was fine. When he told me how he did it, I thought it was clever and cute. Story 23. Ask her to make hand turkeys for Thanksgiving. Very accurate measurement, and there is no way she will catch on. It is months ahead of Thanksgiving, so she will just think you are really excited about pre-planning for Thanksgiving. Story 24. I saw someone answer this question perfectly once. You wait until she is asleep and insert her finger into your mouth. Keep the O shape of your lips after you take out her finger and measure the circumference of your body to get the ring size. Story 25. Go to John Lewis. To the electronics department. They have our smart rings there and a whole range of different ring size measurers so you can get the correct size for the smart ring. If you take her there and play around with those, she probably won't suspect anything. Story 26. I mentioned that for about a week, I wanted to get a piece of my jewelry cleaned. So, I suggested that she should get hers done at the same time. This led to me delivering her ring to the jeweler to get it measured. Story 27. I ordered a ring sizer. We got super drunk one night off wine and funny stories. I set a reminder on my phone for late at night. When she was asleep, I quickly put the ring sizer on her finger, marked it with a marker, and then went to sleep next to my soon-to-be fiancé after I put the ring in my nightstand. It worked like a charm. Story 28. I got this tip from a sitcom. Thanks, Mateo. Take a ring she already owns and slide it down a tapered candle. Twist it to make a slight mark and then take the candle to the jewelry store to get sized. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 29. I have helped 3 friends who were dating with the same thing. Reach out to her friend and have them go shopping. Have them try on rings and report back the size. Trying on each other's rings works as well. Of course, you can always do the above yourself. We were on vacation and went into a jewelry store to figure out what size we were. I got an inkling then, but again, a proposal should never be a surprise. Story 30. My husband and I went to his parents' house, and they were doing some spring cleaning and going through their belongings. His mom had all her jewelry out on the table and was organizing it. I sat and helped her, and she shared stories about all the pieces while encouraging me to try things on. Sure enough, I tried on several rings, and she kept track of which ones fit me. She then informed my husband so he could select a ring. Story 31. Get her to put her ring finger up your bum and remember the exact sensation. Then, when in the jeweler's, ask them to do the same thing. When it feels the same, let them know, and they'll know the ring size from that. It worked for me anyway. Thoroughly enjoyable process. Story 32. So you are going to need some very sharp scissors, a bucket of ice, and a good distraction. Are you taking notes? Story 33. Take one of her rings when she is not wearing it to a jeweler, who will be able to tell you the size. Spend 2 minutes pretending you are going to buy something from them, then leave. If this is what I think it is, congratulations and good luck. Story 34. My girlfriend is leaving rings all over the house, and now I am starting to wonder if it is a hint. She also keeps saying, "Have you seen my rings anywhere?" It is a hint, isn't it? Story 35. I bought a ring sizer, and while she was out, I sized one of her rings that she wore on the same finger on the opposite hand. It had a converter for sizes if ordering from a foreign country. It was a perfect fit. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 36. Get her family or a trusted friend for help. Tell them to bring her shopping and enter a jewelry store together to try on a few rings. Story 37. First and foremost, get yourself informed about cosplay, mainly the different ways to create molds and sculptures. You'll want that later. When you've done that, get a medical degree. That should only take a couple of years. Then, and this is important, specialize in the field of anesthesiology. This will not only give you access to powerful sedatives, but you will also know how to safely use them. Then, when you have accomplished these steps, get her a ticket for a nice vacation, something special like Hawaii or Bochum. Here's where it gets tricky. You have to help her pack. And when she's going through her rings, get her to talk about whether or not her fingers swell up during a flight, because you wouldn't want to have to cut a ring off on the way to Burlington Coat Factory or Libya or wherever you want to go. She will tell you which ring fits perfectly, and then you know which one you need. Then, when you're amazed by the scenery and breathtaking culture of Pripyat, take her hand, tell her something sweet, like maybe talk about a sauna or sauna-related content, and then you can slip the ring off her finger. Then you take the ring and put it on a piece of paper, take a pen, outline the inside of the ring, and go buy a new ring. Then, when you propose, you also have a cool new hobby and a career in medicine. Story 38. I bought a ring sizer that measures rings. Then I went through her jewelry and found the average. I spoke to the jeweler. They told me if I was close enough, it could later be resized to fit perfectly. Story 39. My mom brought out her mother's old jewelry collection and asked my girlfriend if she liked anything from it. She was encouraging her to try on necklaces, rings, and more, and kept note of the rings that fit on the correct finger. Then I took that ring to the jewelry shop and they measured the size. The hardest part is trying to play it cool and not be too suspicious. Story 40. I found a ring sizer band and pretended like I wanted to see the difference in our fingers. It worked out well when she went to buy my ring too because we already had it figured out. Story 41. I asked my wife's twin sister what she thought her finger size was. You do not have to get it perfect. You just want to be close. I was way off, and my wife's finger was much smaller than her twins. But I brought these little clear plastic adjusters that make a big ring fit a smaller finger. After I proposed, we brought the ring in to get the size measured correctly. Story 42. When she is out, grab one of her rings that she has worn for years. Put it on a measuring tape and take a photograph. Return the ring. I did this, and the new ring was perfect. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 43. I played with a ring sizer I randomly found until she got interested and used it as well. I had planned on taking and sizing one of the rings she already had, but she made it super easy. Story 44. My friend's now husband asked me for help. We went shopping and I mentioned I wanted to look at Pandora charms. Then we got on to the necklaces and rings and mentioned we should get our ring sizes just in case so we could help each other out. She has mine, hopefully still, but I passed it on to her partner and also observed what style she liked the best. I felt so stealthy tricking her into it. She had no idea. Story 45. When my now wife wasn't home, I went into her jewelry and remembered which ring she wore on which finger. I used a string to measure a ring. Because she didn't wear a ring on her ring finger at the time, I made a game another day about trying to put her rings on my fingers. When they didn't fit me, I suggested she should try them and see if they fit all of her fingers. Then I paid attention to the ring that I measured when it was on her ring finger. It was a bit snug, so I half-sized up. Story 46. Stole a ring and went to the jeweler's with it. Returned the ring. Nobody suspected a thing. Story 47. If she wears rings, you can discreetly either measure them directly or place one on your ring finger as far as it goes and then measure that part of your finger. This is best if she wears one on her right-hand ring finger, and this is how I figured out my fiancé's ring size. Best of luck. Story 48. I waited until my wife got a blackout from wine after a great night with friends. Then, while she was passed out, I measured her finger with the ring sizers I ordered. It worked perfectly. The ring fits like a glove. Story 49. With all the different lenses and sensors in our smartphones, it is surprising that there isn't an application for that. Just snap a photo of a hand, and it estimates ring sizes. I guess it would not be very accurate, but most people would only use it once, so repeat customers are not an issue, and reviews can be easily manipulated. So, in closing, I have no idea how to solve your problem, but I have come up with a great new, although very unethical, idea for how to make money. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 50. I think most women would rather pick out their own jewelry, especially if it is a wedding ring, which they traditionally wear for the rest of their life. If it is just any old ring, simply borrow one she already has and use that as a reference. Story 51. If it is for an engagement, please ask her if she wants to be involved in picking her ring. She will be the one wearing it for the rest of her life. Story 52. Take one of her rings when she is not wearing it and make an imprint on a bar of soap. Then get a set of ring sizers and match it to the soap imprint. Story 53. I quietly slipped one of her rings onto my pinky and noted how far down it fit before replacing it. At the jeweler, I tested my pinky to find a match. It does require having access to a ring that she wears on her right hand. In my case, the ring finger on her right hand. Thankfully, her right ring finger is the same size as her left. Story 54. My girlfriend, now my wife, always wanted to look at rings. One day, she was getting her nails done, and I talked to the staff at a jewelry store. I told them I wanted to buy a ring. We devised a plan to have the staff seem somewhat pushy in selling a ring. We walked by, and I had her go in and look at rings. They created an account, added her favorite rings to her profile, and obtained her ring size. Once that was done, I went back a few weeks later and ordered the ring. Story 55. My husband borrowed my grandmother's ring that I wore on my right-hand ring finger and used a digital caliper to measure the size. He did this all within an hour, and I had no idea. Story 56. When you are out and about, stop by an affordable boutique jewelry kiosk with costume-like rings and crystals. and try them on with her. It may seem random, but you will gain valuable insights. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 57. You can either buy a ring sizer and try to measure a ring you know she has that fits that particular finger, or be an adult and ask her what ring size she wears in case you want to give her a ring as a gift at some point in the future. Story 58. The easiest way is to borrow another ring she owns and wears. That is important. Some rings are outgrown but kept for sentimental reasons. You can take it to the jeweler. Another option is to measure it yourself with your best ruler. If you're like me and have a steel ruler, you might even have a set of digital calipers. Those are perfect, but not everyone has them. If she is not the type for show jewelry, you could always go ring shopping and get something non-marital as a spur-of-the-moment present. Or just try on rings for fun at a jeweler. Alternatively, my wife and I had silver promise rings for a good year or so before we actually got formally engaged and bought similar white gold ones. We knew we were going to get engaged and married for a long time before it happened. The actual day I proposed was ironically poorly planned and a bit impromptu. But still, what this meant was that I already knew her ring size well in advance. Coincidentally, it is the same as my ring size. Story 59. I tried looking through her staff and found nothing. I have read about sizes and other details. I remember asking the saleswoman to show me her ring and inquired about her size. I asked for one size larger and it worked. Remember, you can adjust it, especially enlarging is quite easy and often free. It won't be the end of the world if you miss the size. Story 60. I am a Canadian engineer. We receive an iron ring that is worn on the pinky finger. I took it off and gave it to her to show it off. It fit on her ring finger, so I knew exactly what size she was. Story 61. I see a few options. Wait until she is wearing a ring and make a joke, a comment about how small their hands are and what the hell size it is. Another option my wife and I always mess around with is I will take one of her rings and put it on my finger. If it is about to the first knuckle of my pinky, then you know exactly what size to use for the ring sizer. If she does not wear rings, you can play around with a piece of paper when you are joking about how tiny her hands are while holding hands, just to compare the size of your hand to hers and keep the paper she uses. It is always a joke for us because I have a size 14 ring finger and my wife has a size 5. Story 62. My husband took a ring off my finger while I was asleep, put it on his pinky, marked his finger with a pen, and later went to a jeweler to have them size where the ring was on his finger. He couldn't manage to get my ring back on me, so he placed it on my nightstand. I was so confused in the morning when I saw it sitting there. I did not figure out what he had done, though. He told me about it after he proposed. Story 63. Sounds silly, but it worked. I don't wear rings, and he had bought different sizes of metal ring attachments for keys. We were sitting at the table one night after dinner, and he pulled them all out of his pocket, joking that he had found them at work. He started trying them on his fingers, and I joined in, joking, "Oh, this one fits me perfectly." It felt like a game, to be honest, and because it was so random, I never thought much about it until a couple of months later when he proposed. He told me how he found out my ring finger size. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 64. Well, it's probably a bit late for you, but I just asked her ring size early on in the relationship and wrote it down somewhere. Story 65. Oh, a friend of mine always wears rings, and her boyfriend would always play with her rings, taking them off and putting them on his fingers while watching television. He used that as a measurement to gauge the size of her ring. Story 66. Just get her an obviously novelty one, and when proposing, also let her know that you will take her shopping so you can both choose the ring together. That way, she gets something she really loves, and you get to do a very couple-like thing together as the first celebration of the engagement. It worked for me, although I proposed using flowers instead of a novelty ring. Story 67. I told her my friends and I were discussing that shoe size is correlated to ring size, a trivial discussion that we likely could have had. She told me they were foolish because her shoe size was X, but her ring size was Y. Couldn't have worked out better. Story 68. Have a friend or sister say they want to get matching rings. Have the sizing information for that person. Have them measure all of their fingers and report back to you the size of the left-hand ring finger. My husband just took me to a jewelry store and had me sized. I knew he would eventually propose, but the ring and the proposal were a total surprise. My first fiancé just had me pick out exactly what I wanted and get my size at the store, and then he surprised me with the proposal. Story 69. I was lucky my wife kept leaving jewelry business cards on my desk with rings she had already been trying on herself. I got the hint. Story 70. I asked my mom. She has a keen eye and knew my wife's ring size just by looking at them. She was right on the money too. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 71. When I planned to buy an engagement ring, I tried to measure the ring size while she was sleeping. I used calipers, but it didn't work because she woke up. So I guessed the size and that worked. Story 72. I had my mom take my now wife to a trunk show at a high-end jewelry store. They got to try on a variety of unique jewelry, and my mom helped her determine her ring size in the process. Story 73. Borrow one of her rings she wears on a similar-sized finger and take it to a jeweler to get it sized. Or press it into a bar of soap to get an imprint you can bring to the jeweler. If all else fails, ask one of her friends or family members. They might be able to stealthily find out for you. Story 74. If you can obtain a ring that she wears without her knowing, a jeweler can determine the size. Then you just need to slip it back without her noticing. Good luck, sir. Story 75. I asked my girlfriend within the first month of dating and bluntly said, I am getting this information now so that you won't be tipped off later. I also made rings a regular conversation item because I was always talking about dating to marry. I took her to jewelry stores just enough so that she actually picked out her own ring without realizing it. Story 76. The jewelry store I visited had a group chat for their employees to guess the size based on photos of people's hands. They were within a size on their crowdsourced guess and adjusted it for free afterward. Story 77. My wife and I had already discussed that we wanted to marry each other. Around that same time, we visited some jewelry stores, and I noted her ring size and style preference. The exact ring, time, and place were a surprise. She didn't see it coming, but everything else was perfect. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 78. Ask her friend. I had a funny situation when my now wife was hanging out with a group of friends during this time. I had asked the group to help get her ring size, but at the same time, the boyfriend of another guy in the group had asked my girlfriend and the rest of the group to help him get his girlfriend's ring size. So the two women were trying not to drop too obvious hints to each other, while the rest of the group watched, trying not to laugh. The guy and I knew each other's plan, so we ended up proposing about 2 weeks apart. Story 79. I took my girlfriend to the jeweler and had her pick out the ring and get her size. Surprises are not for everybody. Story 80. I used my pinky and a pen. I took one of my wife's rings and slid it on my pinky. I marked where it stopped. Then I went that morning to the jeweler to get the engagement ring. It still fits her 15 years later. Story 81. If she already wears a ring of some kind and she takes it off for some reason, such as doing the dishes or moisturizing, stealthily grab it, trace it on a piece of paper, and return it. It should only take a minute. Story 82. I took a big ball of blue tack to her place when she wasn't home and pressed a ring into it. I took it to a jeweler and asked for the size. It had to be resized half a size from memory, but that seems to be pretty common anyway. Story 83. Just get her a cute ring as a present for some other occasion way in advance, like Valentine's Day or an anniversary or something. Story 84. Borrow one of her rings from the right finger and trace the inner circle on paper or press it into soap for an imprint. If she wears it often, put it on your own finger and mark where it stops, then get that measured at a jeweler. Or casually bring up a celebrity's engagement ring and ask what size she thinks hers would be. Sneaky but effective. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 85. Wrap a ribbon, string, or newspaper around her finger when she is sleeping. Mark the length with a marker and bring this to the jeweler. Story 86. Oh, someone is about to pop the question. I just use dental floss around the finger when she is asleep. Story 87. I told my wife I was getting her custom gloves made. I had her measure basically her whole hand in different measurements. She loved the ring but was kind of disappointed about not getting the gloves. Or I could just take a ring she already wears and get its size. Story 88. I had a friend's boyfriend ask me to help him figure it out. So I asked my friend, "Bro, is your ring size the same as your shoe size? Is that how it works?" Did I sound stupid? Yes. Did it work? Also yes. Story 89. I took one of my then girlfriend, now wife, rings when she was in the shower and traced the circle on a piece of paper. Then I matched it to a size chart. Story 90. You can print out ring sizing charts. I just waited until she was out and took her favorite ring to check the size. Story 91. Well, the awkward way of doing this is straightforward. He asked me to get my various ring sizes, so I went to a girlfriend who does jewelry and asked her to size all my fingers. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 92. If you cannot get away with taking one of her current rings to the jeweler, get a taper candle and slide one of her rings on until it will not go any further. Mark the wax of the candle in that spot. Take the candle to the jeweler. Story 93. Also, don't stress and just get a bigger one than you think so it will slide on. Resizing them is easy. I think more jewelers will do this as part of the service, particularly if you are spending a lot on an engagement ring. Best of luck, buddy. Story 94. I sized her rings on my pinky finger and took pictures of how far they went down. Then I let the store size me based on that. I was really close, but as I read this, I wish I had done it another way. Story 95. Ask the women close to her for help, or if she has rings, see which finger she wears the ring on and then see what finger of yours it fits. Likely, her ring finger would fit your pinky or something like that. That's how I learned my cousin's ring size for when her boyfriend asks. We were trying on rings at a thrift store, and I made the point to notice. Story 96. My now fiancé grabbed my hand while we were on the couch together and started comparing my ring finger to all of his. He wasn't subtle at all, but he decided my ring finger and his pinky finger are the same size. He was right. My ring is stunning and fits perfectly. Story 97. I had help from my now sister-in-law. She and my wife are very close, and my sister-in-law talked her into getting sister rings and asked her for her ring size. That being said, my wife never did get her sister ring. Story 98. If you wait long enough like I did, they will take you to a jeweler, show you what they like, and get their finger measured in front of you. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 99. I just asked her. My story is a little complicated though because I went to ask her parents for their blessing, and her mom texted her letting her know 5 minutes after I left. So any plan I had was thrown out. So I just straight up asked her, "What is your ring size?" She was kind of upset about the whole proposal not being as glamorous or surprising, and whenever it is brought up, I just say, "Blame your mother. It all worked out." She ended up being able to pick out her own ring. She is notoriously hard to get jewelry for. And we have been married for 7 years in April, together for a total of 14. I proposed 2 years into our relationship. Story 100. Find a ring she already has that fits her ring finger. Bring that ring to the jeweler. They have a device to measure the size. Story 101. I saw a display at Target for those smart fitness rings that you can try on before buying. You could pretend you want one and get her to try them with you so you get a clue of the size you would need. Story 102. I bought my wife one of those candles that had a ring inside it because it seemed cool. You have to pick a ring size when you order it. Story 103. If you both know the next step is getting engaged, why not take her ring shopping? You can go to a couple of different shops, and she will be able to try on a variety of ring styles, stones, metals, and sizes. This way, you will really get to know what she likes and wants. Then you can buy the ring and propose whenever and however you want. Why make the ring itself a surprise when you can make it exactly what she wants? Story 104. I asked my now mother-in-law if she could find out my ring size because she, my aunt, my grandma, or whoever is getting rid of some jewelry. Story 105. Steal a ring that you know fits her perfectly and bring it to the jeweler. I sometimes have family members buy jewelry for me when they are abroad because in certain places it is just cheaper. The best method we have found for getting rings in my size is that I lend them one that fits me to use as the sizer. Just make sure the ring you take is one that fits on her ring finger because sometimes we wear rings on other fingers if they are big or small, so it cannot just be any ring from her jewelry box. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 106. Wrap a piece of string around your significant other's finger. It will give you a really good idea of the size of her finger. Story 107. I borrowed some of the rings she had and often wore, and went to the store with them. But it is not perfect since every finger is different. Story 108. Ask her mom or borrow a ring she does not wear often and take that to the jewelry store to have them check the size. Story 109. I took an estimate and got a cheap placeholder ring, then let her pick out her own proper one after she said yes. Story 110. Buy a digital vernier caliper off Amazon. When she is not around, take a ring she wears and measure the inside diameter. Then transpose that measurement to a ring size. I just bought an engagement ring that way, and it fits correctly. Story 111. Everyone has good suggestions, but if she doesn't normally wear jewelry, a lot of them won't work. So I've got a sneaky idea for non-jewelry wearing ladies. Tell her you want to do a fun couples activity and make some decor using casts of your hands. Something like this or this. Once it's set and dry, you can measure the cast of her finger at your leisure. Make sure you suggest a pose that will make her ring finger easy to measure. Easy peasy, and you get boyfriend points for planning such a fun couples activity. Story 112. Genuine question. Would most of you women prefer being surprised by the ring or being involved in the ring buying process? Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Story 113. I took one of her rings while she was in the shower and measured it. To confirm, a friend talked with her, saying she had some old rings and asked her for the size. She had no clue. Story 114. Whatever you do, I would go at least half a size larger than you think it may be unless you are super certain. Bring a ring snugger with you so it will fit. There are few things more painful than a ring that is too small. Showing it off can be difficult, and not being able to wear it immediately is sad. When I got mine, it barely fit and squished my finger. It didn't look right and made me feel pretty self-conscious body-wise. Not everyone may feel like this, but it is valid. Story 115. Put her finger in your mouth. Then leave abruptly while not moving your lips. Measure the opening between your lips when she cannot see. Explain nothing when asked what happened. Story 116. I started a crocheting project a few months before I planned to propose. I got some yarn and was playing with it. I looped it around my now husband's finger while he was browsing the internet on his phone and casually ran to our roommate who made jewelry for fun. I stretched the yarn over her ring sizer. This is the best way to get the wrong size, but he still said yes. Rings can always get resized. Story 117. If you have access to a partner's ring, put it on your finger. Note where on your finger it stops. Go to a jewelry store, they have ring size loops. Tell them what you are doing and show where the ring you tested fit on your hand. They will handle it from there. Story 118. When I needed to find out my girlfriend's, now wife, ring size, we went to a store that had rings. I acted like I was thinking of getting a ring and pretended that I didn't know my ring size. We asked the associate to measure mine, and she got hers measured too, just to see what it was. Story 119. She should know. Hollywood dramatic surprise proposals are a massive mistake, and you should not be doing that. You should have had several conversations about getting married and your life together. You should have talked about rings, you should have gotten her ring size from her directly, and maybe even gone to the ring store together. The existence of the proposal should never be a surprise. The circumstances of the proposal are the surprise. Pop the question in a romantic, fun, surprise way, but she should know it's coming, and you should know that the answer is going to be yes ahead of time. Before we dive into the next story, a big thank you for lending me your ears. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's just a click away. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.